Whenever information relies on a single, isolated thread to survive the passage of time, it almost always snaps. This assumption sits right at the center of a popular cultural claim about the Bible. You will hear comedians like David Cross or podcasters like Joe Rogan repeat the idea that the ancient texts making up the New Testament are basically the world's oldest game of telephone. They picture a straight, vulnerable line of translation. The original authors write in Greek. Eventually, someone translates those copies into Latin, and the Greek is discarded. The Latin gets translated into German, and centuries later, someone translates the German into English. And somewhere along this precarious, single-file line, corrupt scribes, powerful kings, and popes easily step in. They delete the parts they don't like, insert whatever theology they want, and pass the altered message down the chain. If this linear model of translation is accurate, the historical foundation of the Christian faith collapses. You would be left holding a modern book that bears absolutely zero resemblance to the actual original accounts. But the historical data points to a completely different reality. The telephone game model completely fails because it misrepresents the actual mechanics of how ancient documents were transmitted. First, we have to separate translation from transmission. Modern English Bibles are not translations of previous translations. The translation committees today are working directly from the ancient Greek and Hebrew source texts, and the transmission of those original Greek texts looked nothing like a single chain. You had multiple authors writing entirely different documents and sending them out to various locations simultaneously. Those initial letters and biographies immediately sparked a massive, decentralized copying effort. Within a few decades, these handwritten copies had spread independently throughout Europe, Asia, and North Africa. This created a natural geographic defense mechanism. If a rogue scribe or a king in Turkey wanted to fabricate a story and insert it into the text, they faced a massive logistical wall. They couldn't physically track down, collect, and alter the thousands of existing copies already safely hidden across completely different continents. The sheer sprawl and redundancy of the network made it geographically impossible for any single authority to control the narrative or rewrite the original text. Because this decentralized network was so vast, textual historians today possess over 5,000 ancient Greek manuscripts to compare against one another. Naturally, ancient scribes making thousands of copies by hand made mistakes. But having this overwhelming volume of data means we don't have 90% of the original text, we actually have 110% of it. It is like opening a 100,000-piece jigsaw puzzle and finding 100,100 pieces inside the box. By cross-referencing this massive network of copies, researchers can easily identify the spelling errors and the scribal additions. The pieces that don't belong stand out, allowing textual critics to filter out the noise and leave the original image perfectly intact. This is the pilot stone, providing a benchmark for the historical detail found in the text. Luke correctly identifies Pontius Pilate as the governor of Judea, while the Roman historian Tacitus incorrectly labeled him a procurator. This inscription confirms Luke's accuracy. The accounts also feature interlocking eyewitness details, called undesigned coincidences. In the Gospel of John, Jesus asks a minor disciple named Philip where to buy bread for a massive crowd. John doesn't explain why Jesus singled him out, but read the Gospel of Luke and you find out this specific event took place in Bethsaida. Then elsewhere in John, we learn Philip was a local from Bethsaida. These independent details lock together to confirm the author was describing a real place and a real event. The immense volume of surviving manuscripts protects the text from outside manipulation, while these independently verifiable details suggest the content was anchored in eyewitness reality. We assume that as thousands of years pass, an ancient text naturally degrades and drifts further from the truth, but reality works in reverse. As time goes on, archaeologists keep digging up older and older manuscripts, bringing us closer to a clear picture of the original writings. This is the P66 papyrus manuscript. It dates all the way back to the late 2nd century. And if you translate the Greek text preserved here, it reads, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." It is exactly the same wording you will find in the Gospel of John if you open an English Bible today. Because the geographic spread of these documents created such a massive, redundant paper trail, the evidence indicates that the original wording hasn't drifted over time. It's been locked in place by thousands of independent witnesses. When the technical evidence shows that the text has been preserved, the conversation shifts from, "Is this the original wording?" to, "Is this testimony true?" If the transmission is secure, we are no longer reading a game of telephone. We are reading a stable historical record. The decentralized network of the ancient world removes the shield of historical corruption. Because we have a reliable window into what the original author said, we are left with the far more significant task of dealing directly with the claims Jesus made about himself.